Hello, welcome to 30 Minutes. I'm Rick Anthony. In case you didn't see it, the Philadelphia Inquirer recently carried a very nice article about some exciting news in Haverford Township. The article was titled Township in Transformation, and the subtitle was Reigniting Haverford's 9 Business Districts. I didn't even know there were 9 business districts in Haverford. And there was a big photo of Oakmont, one of the 9 business districts, and I was delighted to see Oakmont coming back because it's always been such a treasure. And another photo with a caption that credited Haverford Township's progress to a partnership of government, nonprofits, and volunteers, an ideal partnership. My guest today is Donald Kelly, Vice President of the Haverford Partnership for Economic Development, the nonprofit organization that has been driving the revitalization of the township's business centers. Don has a long history of community service and economic development. He began his career as a Peace Corps volunteer in Guatemala, followed by various positions in banking, bringing bank resources into low-income and economically depressed areas for community development. He retired in 2014 as Director of Community and Economic Development with the Urban Affairs Coalition in Philadelphia. Welcome, Don, to 30 Minutes.
Thank you, Rick. Happy to be here.
When I read the article, as I said, I was delighted. I spent a lot of time in Oakmont when I was in college, pumping gas at a gas station that I think is still there, but completely different from what it used to be. And our apartment was not too far. We were in Lanark. So once again, there was a bakery in Oakmont, a very special bakery in Oakmont.
Yeah.
And of course, the pharmacy, Katz's, had been there forever.
Right.
And seems to be very successful in competing against the big box stores. And I guess because it's an integral part of the community.
It's more of a family type of business.
Yeah, exactly, which is what these districts are all about, right?
Exactly.
So it was a great story, and I wish you great success.
Thank you.
I didn't realize, though, until I read your bio, that you've been involved in community development, civic engagement, economic development in Haverford and elsewhere for a long time.
Yes.
But particularly Haverford Township. What are some of the other things you do on behalf of the township?
Well, it goes back. I moved to Haverford Township from Chicago in 1986, and I'm very community-oriented. I get a lot of fulfillment from the connections you make and to helping a community feel and look better. And so I just started looking for opportunities. And initially, I got involved with the Haverford Township Adult School. And I realized that the adult school is very strategically located organizationally within the community because they send out this bulletin with their course offerings twice a year to every household in the community, a tremendous communication network. And I introduced the idea of offering courses that would enrich the community. It's called the Community Enrichment Group of Courses, and it's still there. And this goes back now 25 years. And so what we did was we did some outreach to find out what new things the people in the community would like to see in Haverford Township. And then we held a course that would basically be an organizing opportunity to launch what that idea is. And 2 things came out of that. One was some people said it would be great to have a community gardening group to improve public spaces.
Yes.
And so we put that's like a course. And so we had 12, 15 people sign up. We formed an organization that is now called Haverford Green. It's now 25 years old. We adopted, with the township's permission, that triangle space just below Township Hall on Darby Road.
Yes.
You mentioned the peninsula.
Yes.
Where it comes to a point.
Yes.
That's now an award-winning garden. It has won awards, but at the state and county levels. And we have just a group of 10, 15 volunteers over the years, and it's purely voluntary.
And then all the way down Darby Road.
Well, now that's additional work. That's done by the township itself.
Okay.
But the garden, it was the first community public garden, and it was volunteer, and it's been getting better every year. So that was launched through the adult school. And another thing that was launched was Havertown Choristers. It's
Havertown
Choristers.
Right.
When we did the outreach, one thing that came back was, well, you can sing in church, but there's no place to sing if you're not religiously affiliated.
Yes.
And we'd love to have an opportunity to do that. So we offered that as a course. A whole bunch of people signed up. We got a great director, and that is still going. They just performed. They had like 60 people with a performance at the high school this past holiday season.
All adults?
All adults, yeah. And so what came out of that was the realization that if you can, people have lots of ideas, but they don't know how to act on them and get them launched. And if you have a launching pad, an organizational launching pad,
right,
you can help connect the people who have similar interests, get them organized, and launch them. And so that's what we did through the adult school. And then a few years later, I got involved with an umbrella organization called the Haverford Township Civic Council. So it's an organization of organizations. We had, and we have like 29 or 30 groups, local neighborhood associations, League of Women Voters, Rotary Club, you know, all that. And it's an opportunity for organizations to get together. So on that board, and eventually as president of the organization, I had the idea of creating a process through which people out in the community who had ideas for new initiatives could present their ideas to the delegates representing the 30 groups. And if the delegates approved that, it would then become an action priority of that umbrella organization. So a local group wanting to, for instance, improve the Ardmore Junction train station on the 100 line, and Lower Marion Gulf Manor Civic Group wanted to do that, but they weren't getting much traction. They were just a local group. They presented their proposal, and they have to have 10 people willing to work on it. Presented the proposal to the Civic Council. The Civic Council endorsed it, got behind it, held some public meetings, you know, that gave the issue a great deal more exposure. The result was that SEPTA got more engaged, more serious about it. Now we have, thanks to Jane Hall, who was the leader of that civic group, became vice president of the council and then a commissioner. That is now like a model train station. They beautified it far beyond our expectations. But it's another success, and it's another example of how an organization that creates an organizational platform for new initiatives can really improve the community.
But Don, when you started and were involved in these initiatives, it was a different era. Do you find today that there is still the willingness, eagerness of people to become engaged in community?
I think so. You know, it goes from generation to generation.
Yes.
And you're probably aware that they've done studies back in the 90s. There was a concern about lower involvement in civic activities.
Yes.
They did studies about it, and there's a book called Bowling Alone that came out about it.
Oh, yes.
And what they determined through various extensive research, Robert Putnam was the author, was that the generation that was forged during the Depression, the Great Depression, and World War II, really deep down in their heart of hearts, realize that we're all in this together, and that we've all got to work together.
Yes.
And when we do, we can succeed.
The great generation.
The great generation. And they, right through their final years, were actively involved at a high level of involvement. But each succeeding generation had less of that influence. And to the point where the young people who were, you know, in their 20s back in the 1990s were not very involved at all.
Yes.
But society in general started recognizing this and started to address it. And so you found schools that were making community service part of the curriculum and extra efforts to connect people. And then the newer generation is much more community oriented.
The millennials?
The millennials, I think, are very community oriented. Now they're just starting to form their households,
Yes.
you know. But you can see them getting involved with activities particularly related to children, like schools and parks and recreational things. And probably as they get older, they'll be looking at larger issues in the community. But I think there is a healthy level of civic involvement these days.
The article, as I read, as I recited, credited bipartisan coming together of what had been disparate groups in the past
Yes.
to get behind this movement,
Yeah.
the Haverford Partnership. What's the motivation there?
Yeah, it can be a hard sell, and
I'm sure.
it's, you know, if people don't sense there's a problem, they're not inclined to
Yes.
get involved and do something about it. Or if they think there's a problem but they have no idea what can be done, then they shrug their shoulders. So part of what we did coming out of the Civic Council, we noticed that there were 7 vacant storefronts within a one block radius of our township hall near Eagle and Darby Roads. This is 10 years ago.
Yes, I remember.
Meanwhile, and that's that cute Oakmont Village
Yes.
business district. But the township was very preoccupied at that point with Haverford Reserve, with the former mental health hospital.
Yes.
Understandably, that was a big challenge. And so all the energy was going there. And meanwhile, back at the ranch, it was starting to look neglected. And these older business districts, as we were saying earlier, they were built for pedestrians and
Yes.
public transportation, and people don't walk anywhere anymore.
Right.
They don't take public transportation. You have to have parking accommodations. So the older districts, you know, were getting kind of obsolete, and they have to be. You have to pay attention to them. You have to intervene in certain ways to help them reinvent themselves. Then you can attract a new market of people, and businesses that people are willing to go a little distance to get to, like specialty types of shops.
I asked you earlier, let's see if you can still tick them off. What are the 9 business districts in Haverford? Because I didn't realize there were 9.
One of our challenges is that we don't have one obvious downtown in Haverford Township.
Right.
And we have smaller business districts, and we can.
Well, wait a minute. That stretch right on Lancaster Avenue.
We have a small,
What's
very
that,
small
Haverford
part
Square
of.
or something.
Yeah, we have a block or two across from the Superfresh in Bryn Mawr. That's on Haverford.
Yes.
Lancaster Avenue. That is part
Yes.
of Haverford Township. That's one of the districts, but it's very small.
Okay.
And then we have County Line Road, moving in towards the center. We have
Right.
County Line Road. We have Brookline Boulevard. We have Darby Road, particularly
Right.
the northwest end of it. We have what we call Oakmont Village at Eagle and Darby Roads. That was featured in the article. We have Eagle Road going from Oakmont Village to the new YMCA. We call that Eagle Road Corridor. We have a little section along the 101 bus route called Pont Redding between Haverford Road and County Line Road. You would never drive by there on the way anywhere else, you know, but the bus would go by there, and there's a bus station there, and there's a Napoli dancing school and Pete's sneakers and stuff, and a Yardsley locksmith. So that's another business district. And then we have Edgewood, which is, if you went on Brookline Boulevard all the way to the end by the residential area, there's another small little business district there.
Yes, very small.
And a nice new restaurant there, the Edgewood Cafe. And then we have Westchester Pike.
Yes.
And then we have all the way down to Route 1, Township Line Road. At the far corner of the township, there's the Township Line Shopping Center. There's a restaurant there. A Beneficial Bank is right near there. Abruzzo restaurant is there. And so I think I hit 9.
Okay.
Basically, that's it.
I guess I just never thought of them as
I know.
districts and centers, other than Oakmont and Brookline. Brookline
Yeah.
Boulevard has always been a magnet for that area.
So if we wanted to, we're trying to envision like a Main Street or Main Street program. And so the best we can do is to say, well, there is a spine, internal spine, commercial areas. If you go from the YMCA along Eagle Road to the Katz Pharmacy and the Oakmont Pub, and then you go at Oakmont Village. Then you go down Darby Road, and then you make a left on Brookline. If you connected all of that,
Yes.
it would be a spine in major need of adjustment by a chiropractor, but it is a spine. It all connects, and that's kind of the interior commercial area.
Interesting. And then have those separate districts come together?
No.
Okay.
No.
That's
That's down
the
the
next
line.
challenge. All right. Listen, before we go any further,
Yes.
I have to ask, what is a life cycle celebrant?
Yeah.
And how does one become certified as a life cycle celebrant?
Okay.
It was in your bio.
Yes, right. This is my
I've not seen that
my
designation
semi-retirement activity. So,
Uh-huh.
yes, a celebrant
before. Yes.
is a non-ministerial official who helps people create and then presides in customized ceremonies
All right.
for major life transitions. So obviously weddings and funerals
Yes.
are obvious ones, but also overcoming an affliction, starting on a new path in life, becoming a homeowner for the first time, becoming coming of age as a citizen. These are all life transitions that aren't necessarily celebrated in our society, but are in traditional societies. And with that kind of celebration, it's not a party. We're talking about a ceremony, but it's customized to that person's story, that person's values and aspirations and support system. And so we work with that person to create a ceremony that is about them and expresses their transition in life.
So it is a designation, and
Yes.
and people are certified as.
Yes, it's certified by a trade group. Well, it's by the Celebrant Foundation and Institute out of Montclair, New Jersey. And it's a 2-year program. It's like a regular course, the volume of work, you know, and there are 2 successive courses, and then you can take. Then you become certified by them
Yes.
as a celebrant. Now, what you have the official authority to do varies from state to state. So New Jersey just passed a law in this last year recognizing civil celebrants to
So
perform weddings.
They
for
can
instance.
officiate at weddings.
Yes.
Okay.
Whereas other states have not recognized. Well, California, I think, probably has.
And it is non-sectarian,
Non-sectarian, right?
not affiliated with any religion.
Right. But it can be. So for instance, if it's a funeral or a wedding, I would ask whether they want a purely secular event, whether they want something that is spiritual but in a non-affiliated way, and most people opt for that.
I'd never heard of it before.
Yes,
is
it's a
it
growing
relatively
field.
new?
It's a growing field. In fact, I think there was a Time magazine article a few years back citing this as one of the
Is that
fastest
right?
growing professions.
I'll be darned. Are older people, by and large?
Generally, they are.
They are.
Yeah, middle age. Some younger, but a lot of middle age.
I'd like to know more about that.
Sure.
Not that I want to be certified. I'd
Well,
just
you
like
may.
to know more about
You
it.
may.
Let's get back to Haverford
Sure.
Partnership for a moment. It is a volunteer organization, right?
Yes, it
you
is.
are not. You're not really supported by the municipality in
Well,
funding and whatever.
We're 6 years old now. We received a $2,000 grant early on to help us kind of get incorporated and things like that. But we don't have paid professional staff, so we operate on a volunteer basis. We have been once in a while we'll get a little grant like from the Civic Council to support an intern for a specific project, but we don't have regular staff people.
Okay, but could you make application, for example, to the Delaware County Community Foundation?
Yes, we could.
For a particular project?
Yes, we could.
And do you work at this point project to project?
Yes, we do. We have a couple ongoing services, and then we have projects, you know, each year.
Do you provide educational programs for business owners to help them do a better job of growing, sustaining their businesses?
Yes, you should join our board.
Through
because
the
that
community, through the community college,
no,
or through the
But-
high school?
no, we did it ourselves, and we got space in the library, the public library, and that was one of our first activities 5 years ago. So we had a whole series of workshops on particularly using the internet to market your business.
Yeah.
Very popular one. But other ones in terms of financing your business, how the art of a window display. So we had 5 or 6 topics that we did for a couple of years. Then we moved on to other activities. Business networking is a big popular event.
Where do you get your faculty, quote unquote?
People that we know either in our organization or that we know of who have skills in that area. So our president, Brendan Goggin, is the owner of the Oakmont National Pub at Eagle and Darby Roads, but he also has a believe, a master's degree in social media, internet, and has a side business doing that. And so he ran the workshops. And
this is probably one of those sensitive questions, but does the township provide any special tax incentives or other kinds of financial incentives to either attract business or to keep business?
No.
But that's on your agenda.
But that is, if you look at, so a model, one of your questions, I believe, is going to be, are there any national models? The best national model is called the Main Street Program. It's been around for about 30 years, and it originally came out of the National Trust for Historic Preservation. And I can explain that model a little bit later. But generally, that's the direction which we're going in, is to revitalize our business districts using the Main Street model. And it does, one strategy some townships use, or boroughs, will be to provide some type of tax incentive for businesses.
Yes.
We're not at that point yet. And our new economic development consultant, Graham Copeland, may at some point recommend that. I don't know. There's also a mechanism they use in Ardmore, for instance, and I believe in Lansdowne, where they have Main Street programs, and that's it's called the Business Improvement District. Center City, if you remember, you ever see those people with the teal coats walking around?
Yes.
Those aren't employees of the city; they're employees of the business district.
Yes.
And it's a special mechanism through which businesses in a certain defined geography vote on whether to, property owners rather, vote on whether to impose an added layer of tax that then everybody would have to pay for who owns property there. But then that group of people, together with the city, would manage that money specifically and only for improvements in that district.
Does Haverford Partnership become involved, in addition to the business districts, other parts of the township, residential areas, that warrant some attention?
Not at this point. We're focusing on the business districts.
Of aging infrastructure?
Yeah, there are, I mean, there certainly is a need, varying, depending on the neighborhood and all, but I mean, our residential areas are in pretty good shape. The business districts were not in as good a shape as the residential areas.
Does Haverford have much open land left?
Not anymore. No, very little. We're very built
Radnor
out.
is blessed in that we have quite a bit of open land.
Yeah.
It's cost us, taxpayers, but I think it's an investment worthwhile.
Oh, for quality of life.
Sure.
You know, sure.
It's just to be able to look out and see something that is open, not obstructed by concrete and glass.
Yes, definitely.
What's the most difficult, what has been the most difficult part of mobilizing the resources you need, human as well as financial, to continue to work your agenda?
Well, you have to, the Main Street model calls for this partnership that you mentioned earlier between residents, businesses, commercial property owners, and government. You need all those working together. And so the challenge is to get everybody on board. And if there's no sense of urgency, they may not be motivated. So this part of it's a consciousness-raising process early on to say, all right, so we can get by, we're okay, but look how nice Narberth is. Look what they've done there.
Yes.
And then other communities are not so nice, and you say, well, we could, if we just let things go, maybe we're not going to be as nice as we are now. On the other hand, we know communities can be reinvented very successfully.
Yes.
And so getting that buy-in, and I would say the township government has largely bought into this idea, and is committing resources. The township staff have been working hard in a very practical way to improve the parking lots, to get street lights, traditional street lights in the business districts. There's a lot of work involved with this behind the scenes, but our paid professional staff in the township managers, assistant managers, work hard on that. The residents are happy to help out. They just want to know, what can we do?
Yes.
And one way, for instance, we've mobilized residents is that we notice we've got and the article recognized, we have a mini boom in interesting restaurants in Haverford Township.
Yes.
You know, Thai, Irish,
Yes.
you know, Italian, all kinds, Brick and Brew and Oakmont Pub and McKenna's, all this. So, but you know, Cafe D'Angelo, and sometimes they do well on weekends, but during the week, not necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're thinking, well, how can we introduce people to these restaurants?
Yes.
So we had the idea of forming a dining club. So the Haverford Partnership for Economic Development put out the word that we're forming a first Wednesday dining club to support our local businesses. You know, within a month we had 60 people join the club.
Right?
Yeah, we had to close it at 80.
That's great.
And now we're opening it up again a little bit more. And so we have a very efficient system, but once a month we go to a different restaurant. Now we usually get 30 to 40 people. Sometimes the restaurants can't handle that many people, so we have 2 nights, like the first and second Wednesday.
What are you doing in the arts? There's no community arts center, I believe, in Haverford.
That's right. Yeah, we have the Arts Guild that you mentioned earlier.
Yes.
And they have some events, and then the schools, and we don't have. And then there's the Mainline Arts Center.
Yes.
That's outside of our community, but it serves our community in part.
Is there any particular special relationship with Haverford College and the use of their facilities?
Not that I
for
know
community events?
Not that I know of.
Yeah.
I think that they've been very helpful in providing interns to our organization.
That's in their best interest as well.
Yeah, but I'm not aware of, and I'm sure there are other things, but I'm not aware of what.
So, Don, what's the long-term goal of the Haverford Partnership?
It's to help the community become attractive to young, vital families who enjoy the scale of traditional suburban community life, but who also appreciate the amenities of the city. And so that they are looking for communities where they can have access to the city and still have traditional type of community life. You know, we know this is a successful model in many communities around the country, and we think we're well positioned for that kind of fresh blood in our community. If you wanted to get as far away from the city as possible, you don't look for Haverford Township. You don't even look at Radnor. You look at Exton and way out there, right? People who look at our communities like the quality of life, they like the scale, but they also like to be able to go into the city for all those amenities.
Those who are interested in learning more or perhaps becoming involved, how do they get to you? I had a bit of a problem.
Yeah.
I called the township building. They didn't know what I was talking about. They certainly didn't know you. You're listed as a volunteer organization, but nobody could tell me how to connect.
Yeah.
And your website doesn't have any contact information.
Yeah, our website is under reconstruction right now.
Good, glad to hear it.
So that, that's a, that needs more
But
work.
seriously, if there are people who would like to know more and get involved?
Right. I mean, they could contact me directly. My email address is just donaldkelly@aol.com. DONALDKELLY at AOL.com. We have a great, another way to connect to the community, we have a great, part of our civic infrastructure is a great electronic newsletter that comes out of the Haverford Township Civic Council. It's called the Informed Citizens Network. It's the most readable newsletter you'll find. It's full of beautiful pictures and color and short stories and lists all the things that are going on and then the calendar of upcoming events. You can just sign on to it. It has a distribution of over 4,000 people.
We're running out of time, but a question does occur to me. Are you beginning to take this message into the schools, the elementary schools and the high schools? Civic engagement, the need to be involved, to assume responsibility for your community?
I think it's a great message. I'm sure some people are doing it.
It's not part of your charter?
Not the HPED, but the Civic Council has closer ties directly to the schools, and I know it supports various school activities. One thing, for instance, the Civic Council does is that we have this annual music festival that brings as many as 18,000 people out.
Really?
4 stages. Yep.
Where? Where's it held?
Right in the Oakmont, Darby Road district
that
area.
right?
Yep, it
I
goes
wasn't
on
aware of that.
in October. And my neighbor Tom Kelly organized it under the Civic Council. It clears about $20,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
That money then goes back into new initiatives, trails, parks, the jazz club at the high school.
Yeah.
And so we have this. This is part of that infrastructure
Yes.
I'm talking about. Good communication, some funding of new initiatives, platforms for people to launch
Yeah.
new projects.
So what's the next mountain you're going to climb now that you have all this time on your hands?
Yeah.
You're retired.
Yeah.
Whatever that is.
I'm really enjoying the work right now. So there's a new project coming out of this whole system, and it's called Haverford in Bloom. And so it was the idea of the township's representative to our board, Jane Hall, when she was commissioner. And she said, you know, we just beautified the Ardmore Junction train station. How about beautifying other public spaces? And so we then started thinking about how to do that. And the model is that we're identifying public spaces that could be beautified, and then we're looking for local groups to adopt
take
that
ownership.
space.
Yeah.
And then we'll try to provide a support
Like adopt
system
a
for
highway.
it. Yes. And so that's now getting underway. The Rotary Club has adopted one of the train stations, and it's another civic group, another train station. And so we're starting to put these partnerships together. So that's going to be one of our main activities in 2016, the HPED.
Well, it's great work. And again, I go back to Oakmont Village because it was such an important part of my early life
Yes.
100 years ago. But to see that come back has just been a delight.
Great.
See the
so
shops
happy to hear you say that.
And no vacant store windows and so on. Is there a bakery there?
The Scandia was the last bakery
Yes,
there.
that was it.
Right, and they closed, 7 or 8 years ago.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Get a bakery.
Testa's is the best one down at Brookline now.
Thank you. Yes, they're very good.
Yeah.
Thanks very much for being here. Wish you great luck with your project, and perhaps you'll come back and tell us more as you have more to report.
We'd be happy to do it.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for this opportunity, Rick.
Until next time, this is 30 Minutes. I am Rick Anthony. Take very good care of yourselves.